and I'm going to draw a line under this and move to another issue. You're watching Q&A, because we need to do that. The program that gives you the chance to ask the questions. We've got many of them. The due one answered. The next question comes from Tom Rosso.
With Premier Anna Bligh and Senator Mark Arbib recently coming out in favour of same-sex marriage and a conscience vote on the floor of the House, are we likely to see a change of policy? And how will the opposition respond to this?
I'm going to start with Randa on this, and we'll move to the politicians after we hear from our non-politicians.
Well, I support having a conscious vote. I think that in a secular society, that the rights of both to have a male, male-female relationship, a heterosexual relationship, and a homosexual relationship, that's a matter for the public to decide on, and it should be a matter of a conscious vote. It shouldn't be a politicised issue. I don't see how banning same-sex relationships can work within a democratic system of government.
Janet.
I don't have a problem with having a conscience vote at all on this issue, but I'd be very surprised if you get support from, as I said earlier, the Prime Minister. And she will hold great sway, I think, within the Labor Party, despite the fact that you have Anna Bligh coming out against her position, despite Mark Abib's talk and despite others within the Labor Party.
What's your position? Are you happy to see limits on the rights of individuals because they happen to be gay?
I don't believe in gay marriage, no. No.
You don't believe in gay marriage?
No.
OK.
Can I just add? Sorry, can I just add?
Yes.
I don't believe in gay marriage either as a devout Muslim, but I think that in a secular democratic society, I can't sustain that argument because my religious beliefs can't be imposed on others. And I think
for me, Randa, I'm not a Muslim, and it's not a religious matter. It's not a religious matter.
So it's not a religious matter for you?
No, but I fundamentally believe that marriage is between a man and a woman, and that you can have civil unions between lesbians or gay men. What is it about the word marriage that they need to have? Why is it that they need to have the word marriage?
Just to confirm, you're OK with the idea of civil unions?
Correct.
But you don't like the symbol of marriage?
Correct.
You don't like the religious symbol?
That's right.
Being applied to it?
Mm-hmm.
OK, but you don't believe in religion either?
No,
it's not a religious issue.
I'm just saying it's not. I don't come to it, from a religious point of view.
Yes, OK. Jonathan Biggins.
Well, that reminds me very much of, I think, Paul Keating's observation, which was, two blokes and a cocker spaniel doesn't make a family. And I think we've moved a long way from that. And what I can't understand is why doesn't the Labor Party just short-circuit the whole issue by saying let's have a conscience vote? Because I'm sure you would find many supporters on every side of the House, if there be more than two sides, as there are now, and it would be done, dusted, gone. I can't see what the problem is.
Bill Shorten, let's look at this from your point of view. Mark Abib has now come out and said there should be a conscience vote. Do you do you any favours in doing that? And more importantly, do you do the Prime Minister any favours?
Going to your question and also Tom's question about, I think you asked the opposition, but in terms of the Labor Party, Julia Gillard has said that this matter will be debated at our national conference. The current policy is that we have that we don't support, the Labor Party policy doesn't support changing the Marriage Act. But I think because this is an important issue and it's an issue where there are strong views going both ways, as we've just even heard here. What the Labor Party has done is that we've removed 85 different pieces of discriminatory legislation because, on one hand, some people really do object to the idea of gay people getting married. On the other hand, a lot of people, including myself, think that why should someone be discriminated against because of their gender or sexuality? So you've got these two issues. I believe that the way forward is to probably follow the Prime Minister's prescription. The Labor Party will debate this at its conference. So for those of you who don't follow the minutiae of how the Labor Party arrives at its decisions, we'll have a debate at the conference, and that's where it should be. And that'll be in about 12 months.
OK, can I just get you to respond to the Mark Abib question?
Yeah,
because you've got a senior power broker within the Labor Party
Tony,
now saying there should be a conscience vote.
Tony, I don't mean to upset you on the last show, but this is an important issue beyond just one-word answers to one point of the issue.
No, I'd just like to get you to respond.
I absolutely will, but I'm going to set this issue up and all of the detail, which I think it deserves to be covered, and then I'll come to the point about Mark and other people. So we accept that there's competing views, and these, just as people who are gay and supporters of people who are gay believe that they should be treated with tolerance, should be treated with dignity and respect, I also think we need to be a little careful before we immediately rubbish the other point of view about changing the Marriage Act. So understanding there's two sets of views there, I have no doubt that we'll debate it at conference. One of the propositions, which Mark and others will champion at conference, is that there'll be a conscience vote. And that's where the Prime Minister said the issue's headed, and we'll decide it there.
It's going to be a private member's bill, of course, before the conference.
OK, but
so
we've
what
got
happens
to set...
there? You just
well,
you don't have a conscience
I'll be
vote
supporting our Prime Minister, which is the current party policy, is that we don't support changing the Marriage Act at this point. Where do I think this issue will end up? I think that the Labor Party and a whole lot of people who are committed to opposing discrimination will remove all of the issues of discrimination. And then I don't know if it'll be this year, next year, or in 10 or 20 years' time. I think a time will come where a whole lot of people will think, OK, what's the drama about changing the Marriage Act? I don't think the community's there yet to change the Marriage Act.
OK. George Brandis.
I largely agree with Bill's approach to this. I think, and by the way, can I make one point before I go on, that the repeal of the 85 discriminatory laws was done in bipartisan fashion with the support of the opposition. I think there are two important principles that are set in tension here, and neither can be looked at in isolation. The first principle is that people shouldn't be discriminated against because of their sexuality, and I don't think any decent person would dispute that sexuality should not be a basis for discrimination. Now, the Liberal Party very strongly believes in that principle and has acted upon it in the previous Parliament. On the other hand, I think that people who want to see the law changed do need to accept that marriage is a unique institution. It has a deep cultural and, for most Australians still, religious significance. And to change the definition of marriage in the Marriage Act is something that should not be done until there is a significant community consensus in favour of doing so. Now, where those two principles come into tension is the decision policymakers have to, from both sides of the Parliament, have to grapple with. But I don't believe that the Marriage Act ought to be changed in the respect recommended by the questioner.
To me, it seems that those 2 points completely contradict each other, because all of you seem to have agreed that religious ideologies should not be imposed on or should not dictate government policy. But what you've just said there is that a lot of major religions, you know, dismiss or don't recognise the idea of the union of two people from the same sex. So why should that be applied to a government policy? I just don't understand. And the idea of not wanting to rubbish the Marriage Act that we have at the moment, I don't understand the practical reasons behind that whatsoever. I just would like to hear a practical reason behind, rather than, oh, I just have an aversion to it.
OK, all right. Thank you very much. George Brandis, just briefly on this, if you would, Mark.
Well, I think what you need to accept is that everybody in society has an interest in the way in which their society defines marriage. And as I said a moment ago, it's not simply a question of the individual rights of a certain group of citizens. It's also the entitlement of a society to define marriage in terms of its cultural norms, its historical practice, and for most, though not all people, its religious values as well.
Override an individual's rights.
Well, listen,
is that what you're saying?
But many laws do. I mean, all sorts of things override an individual's rights.
But there's no practical reason behind it. That's what I just don't understand.
Sorry, OK, we'll go to Bill Shorten. I'm going to move on straight after that.
I have a personal view. I'm not a religious conservative. Frankly, what people do in their own home is their own business, and the less the government has to deal with that, the better. But having said that, hang on. OK, sorry. All right, but I'm coming to...
when they pass away, or whether they're in a coma. Like,
yeah.
it's decisions about people's lives. Like, it's
I'll speed up my answer.
It's not just what happens in your own home. It's
hang on a second.
It's real life.
All right, but you know what? This issue is too important just to give glib one-liners. What I'm saying is I'm not a religious conservative. Frankly, what you will do when you go home tonight is entirely your call. What I'm interested in is that I think in 20 years' time, if someone plays a tape of this show and they see us debating whether or not gay people can be married, people say, what was the argument about? But the reality is there's quite a lot of people now who have a conflicting view to legalising gay marriage. My view is if you actually want to have change, you can try and have an argument now, or you can remove the active discrimination now and you can have a more seamless transition to a different view as time goes on.
Well, there's a really simple solution. I don't think the debate is about marriage. Like, just remove the debate about marriage. Talk about civil unions for all people.
Fine.
And then for people who are religious, they can get married.
OK, I'm going to take that as a comment because it's time to move on to other subjects. The next